Hey garden friends, Today we want to talk about 10 tried and true tricks or tips that help keep your garden less maintenance so that you can actually sit and enjoy it more. Yeah, last year I did a similar video and it was 10 things I quit doing to make my gardening life easier, and it resonated with a lot of you. And I thought, it's time to do another. So everybody is looking ahead to their gardens for this season. Some people are thinking about seed starting, whether it's winter sowing or indoor seed starting. But just keep these things in mind as you prepare for your next year's gardening season. So now this one kind of incorporates two tips in it, but we'll just put it together because it kind of is the same. Now, mulch everything. Yes, everything. So mulch is one of the biggest time savers for everybody because it suppresses weeds, so you're not out there weeding, holds moisture, water less, and it improves your soil over time. Yes, it feeds the soil, which is very important. We'll talk more about that in a little bit in another segment. But so you could use shredded bark, leaf mold or leaves, compost or pine needles, and you aim for 2 to 4 inches deep. So with this, I would say also you could use ground covers. Ground covers are wonderful because they do the same as mulch, except if they grow well for you, the ones that you choose, then you don't have to replace them year after year. They actually are self-perpetuating. And kind of like my lamium is not rampant. I can keep it in control really easy in the area that it's at, but it surely covers the ground and it does not let weeds through. And if I want to remove it from an area, then I just pull it out. I don't have any trouble getting rid of it, like deep roots or anything. So they work perfectly. I had read an article in a horticultural magazine about how they're even better for your soil than adding wood chips and stuff like that. So think of ground covers too. I will link the video below about 10, I don't remember how many ground covers I had in it, but that you can put in place instead of mulch. And it saves you money in the long run because you're not having to always buy mulch. 2, here's one that I have a differing opinion on, and we'll talk it through. So plant perennials instead of annuals where you can. Perennials come back year after year Perennials come back year after year with far less work. So there's less planting, less watering, less fuss. I don't agree with that. Because with the planting, you plant a perennial, then it comes back year after year. But many of them die back. They're herbaceous. They die back to the ground in the winter. Now, annuals that reseed themselves do the same. They come back year after year on their own because they send out seed, they come up from the seed, and they are beautiful. I don't understand less planting because right there, you're not planting another annual. Less watering. They come up from the rain and snow of winter, just like your perennials do. Less fuss. There are so many tough perennials that, like, there's zinnias and cosmos and whatever. There's no fuss involved. In fact, with the cosmos and zinnias, if they haven't reseeded themselves or do not come back on their own, they're super easy to direct sow in the soil. Now, what I would say is shrubs. Shrubs that are colorful and they stay colorful or even change colors through the seasons, they are even less work, unless they're ones you have to shape every year. But shrubs can be a great background planting, like the bones of your garden, and then you fill in with perennials and annuals. But in my book, perennials and annuals are kind of neck and neck as far as work involved with them, because many perennials need to be deadheaded to keep blooming. So if you could explain to me what is less work about perennials, please do. But in my experience in my gardens, to me, annuals and perennials are neck and neck. So Number 3, group plants by water needs. This is actually called hydrozoning. Can be very helpful because if you have a drought area, or like I wanted to put in a Mediterranean garden, I didn't get that done yet, but I think it might be a goal for this year. But all of the drought tolerant plants together means, of course, you don't have to have irrigation there, or very limited irrigation there. And then other plants that need a lot more water, then you have more irrigation too. Now, if you're hand watering, you can really see how having things like that together, planted together, could really be time saving and less maintenance. If you have a drip system, which I think is coming up next. Number 4. So with the group plants by water needs, it says you'll waste water less and stop babysitting plants that don't need it. Now, this is not things in containers. Containers have their own issues, and you can put drip to them. So yeah, grouping plants by water needs. I will also say that I often interplant, like my irises, they take less water than maybe my roses and other perennials, but I get away with it because I plant them on mounds within there, and so they drain faster and get the dryness that they need when other things like the moisture. So use drip irrigation or soaker hoses. Yeah, that's number 4, and it is a big time saver when you have a larger garden. And even if you have containers, like on my back deck, I just bought a kit to put drip to all my containers, so I'm not out there hand watering. Now, hand watering sometimes is very relaxing. A lot of people prefer it, but when you got a lot going on, it is really, really nice to have irrigation. Or I did a blog post and blog video on Oya pots. They worked really, really well this last summer in my containers on the deck. They did dry out quite quickly, like every couple days, so you had to fill them up. But that was my downtime, and it was okay. But yes, drip irrigation will save you a lot of time out in the regular garden. I have mine set up. I don't have a timer. That would make it even more maintenance free if I did have it on a timer, because I had so many different zones. And this is a DIY drip system I showed you in a video recently, and I'm not sure how to set up a timer with the 4 different zones. Anyways, I'm sure I could learn, but I would go turn on one zone manually, set my timer on my watch or my phone. Then it would, for half an hour, when it would be done, it was time for me to take a break from whatever I was doing, and then I would go turn on the next zone and turn that first zone off. So it worked for me just fine. If I was away, well, I always made sure I watered well before that. Also, soaker hoses, the ones that are made from old tires, you have to be real careful. You can't buy the cheap ones because they don't weep evenly. So when they don't weep evenly, you'll have dry spots and wet spots. And yeah, I learned that after I had bought some really nice ones. And then I bought some other ones that were less expensive, or some people gave me some because they didn't like them. And then I found that those ones did not weep. You'd have big sections that didn't release water, and that's counterintuitive. But soaker hoses, if you get the good ones, will work. But I have found my drip system where the lines are within the hose, those worked really well for me. So yeah, it delivers water right to the roots, and it reduces disease because you're not getting water like on the plants that are susceptible to fungus. And it does save time rather than standing there with a hose or even putting out a sprinkler. Now, sprinklers also will cause plants to flop. So that's always that isn't always a good choice. So number 5, choose plants that actually like your climate. Now, we all hear about zones. The only thing a zone tells you is what perennials will live through the winter, your winter low temperatures. But this is talking about your climate and your conditions, which can vary amongst the same zone. Some zone 9s are very hot and arid. Some zone 9s are very wet and cool. It is only the average low temperature you get in winter that it tells you. So your climate could be very rainy in a known zone 9, or it could be very dry. So you need plants that like those conditions. If you live in a very humid area, there are plants that will get mildew very, very easy, like Monarda. Monarda is famous for getting mildew. And sometimes other plants will too. And so you want to look for, if you want that type of plant and you have humid conditions, you would look for varieties that are more mildew resistant. Does that mean you're not going to get mildew? No, it means that it will resist it more. But if you have a really warm, wet summer, you will get mildew. It's just ripe conditions for that. But yeah, so pick the right plants for your local conditions. And your garden can even have microclimates in it, so you need to observe. Now, a good garden is one that you observe intently. Take your time with it. You're not going to plop in a bunch of plants and immediately have a gorgeous garden. When you take your time, you can note all the nuances in your garden. Maybe it's on a certain side of your house that gets more shade, or only part sun. Pay attention to those things. And if you plant the right plants in the right spot, they will do well and you will have lower maintenance. So 6, let plants grow closer together. Now this closer together doesn't mean overcrowded. I did a video recently of one garden rule I break, and it's where I plant perennials closer together than was what it tells you to do so on the tag. And why I do that is it fills in, it shades out weeds, it has instant impact. And within 3 years, as they're filling out, I can move one if I want to, if I feel like it's becoming crowded. But that's an option there. But in the meantime, it's really put on a show, it's done well, and I'll get another plant or another, when I dig it up, I can actually divide it and then get more from it. So that is one. Now, if you want to watch the different things that I have planted closer together, then you can go watch that video. Yeah, crowded but not overcrowded is the sweet spot. Number 7, use raised beds or defined borders. Now this, why this makes it lower maintenance is when you have defined borders, then it's easier to keep it tidy looking. I will give you an example. In my my rose cottage garden, I have a border of driftwood and stuff taken from a local lake. And I have micro clover growing in the pathway. I wanted a green pathway. I mow it with a weed eater as needed, but along the edges where it wants to creep into the flower bed and I don't want it to, then I can turn my weed eater on its side and just go right along the driftwood edge, and I can keep it from running into the flower beds where I don't want it. And that's true, like raised beds, it's the same thing. You can prevent things from going in there that may be creeping along. Like maybe you have, like I do, a pathway or a ground cover or something like that. Raised beds also help with drainage. If you have like very clay-ish soil and you want to plant plants that like it, good drainage, and don't really care for clay soil. But yeah, you don't have to do raised beds, and even raised beds don't have to have sides. They could just be soil that's been lifted. And what I mean is you pile soil up and you make a flat top. It's as if it has sides, but it really doesn't. And it's just a mound with a flat top, and that makes your flower bed. That also works without having to put in expensive frames for raised beds. My very first raised beds that we created were from scrap wood. They lasted for many, many years. And by the time they were deteriorating, I wanted a different layout anyway. So it was no big deal to pull them up and recycle that wood, or I don't even remember what we did with it. We probably turned it into the recycle center. And yeah, and it wasn't expensive because it was free. I had scaffolding. It was scaffolding boards from my dad's roofing company. That's raised beds. So 8, feed the soil and not the plants. Yeah, healthy soil means healthy plants. And healthy plants mean there's less care or hands-on that you need to deal with. So if you add a good quality compost every year, 1 or 2 inches, or and then in the spring, and then in the summer, midsummer, you can side dress with good compost. I get very high quality compost from a local organic turkey farm. They sell it at the landscape supply and at the farm store. And then if you're feeding your soil like that, you don't have to constantly fertilize with, a liquid or whatever. I do supplement my roses with some liquid organic fertilizer because I just want to help them get through, pushing out those blooms. And I should say in containers. Containers, the nutrients wash through very easily. But the rest of my garden basically gets fed by leaves I mulch with, pine needles I mulch with in the fall. I had chicken debris I used to put in. I rehomed my chickens until we can rebuild a chicken pen and stuff like that. So I wasn't constantly fertilizing my garden. It didn't need it because I fed it through the winter and in the spring with compost. Now, a lot of bad composts at the big box stores and whatever, they don't have as great of nutrients in it as if you made your own, or if you had some like I get from that organic turkey ranch. So you can use slow fertilizers, which compost, that's what it is. It's a slow fertilizer. I would prefer organic, but you can use the slow fertilizer if you can't get compost. And it takes a few weeks for it to break down, for the plant to use it. So think ahead. And you can supplement in the meantime with a liquid, but it will do the job too. But that prevents frequent feeding. So number 9, leave the leaves. Yeah. Don't over clean your garden. You can put the leaves, if you got to get them off your lawn because you don't want it to kill grass, then put them in your flower beds. They will act as a natural mulch. They will break down. They protect soil life, and they reduce the weeds. So you can chop them up or not. I don't bother chopping them up. A lot of people say, oh, they'll get matted and they'll do whatever. I've never had them do that. They just break down. And the matting, all it does is prevent weeds. Now, if it was on a lawn, of course you don't want that matting, but that's why you rake them up. I had a friend, I was helping her in her little garden, and she's disabled and uses a walker, and I was helping her with move some roses, some big pots. And she was talking about her neighbor. She's in a senior living center, and her neighbor is, their doors face each other, but they share this common garden in front. And the neighbor was complaining, oh, I wish the landscapers would, take all these leaves out and because they were blowing them off the lawn into the flower beds. Smart landscapers. And my friend was reassuring her that that's exactly what she wanted. And next time she would tell them to blow them into her flower bed instead if that neighbor wanted. But she was reassuring her that that was really good for the soil in the flower beds. So 10, stop trying to make it perfect. This is something I often urge people, and it bears repeating. So if you have a relaxed mindset, then you will let go if a few weeds come in. What I mean by let go is you won't worry and run out there and have to pull a bunch of weeds. Plants don't need constant pruning. Nature likes a little bit of a mess. So you can be reassured that your garden's not going to go to heck in a handbasket just because you let it go. You're more relaxed about your garden. And I think I've got a video coming up. The idea is rolling around in my mind about a boring garden being the most joyful. That's something I'm thinking on. So anyways, low maintenance gardens thrive when we sit back and wait just a little or just enjoy. Put a bench in your garden, put several benches or seating area, and sit a lot more than you may have in the past. So 11 was grow the ground covers, but I included that in with the mulch. So 12, I don't know if I set it in the mulch one, but if you use the ground covers instead of mulch, you're going to save a lot of money and a lot of time because you're not always having to replace it. They just fill in. I may have said it, but for some reason, I'm thinking I didn't. Okay, so this one I wanted to say for last because I wanted you to remember it. Do one big garden tidy in the spring or early summer instead of constant little ones. Now, many times we have just a few minutes spare in our day of whatever task we're doing, and we'll go out and do a little bit of gardening. But I will tell you that last year and the year before, early on in the season, I hired my brother-in-law and my nephews for the day and had a long list of chores that I wanted done, like spreading bark in the pathways, weed eating my whole back hillside back there where the weeds had gotten rampant. I don't garden that. I just wanted it tidy. The grass and weeds get big. And I had my nephews weeding in areas that just were getting away from me or had gotten away from me during the season, earlier in the season. And so having a whole bunch, attack it at once, and getting those things in line at the get-go really made for a more enjoyable, more relaxed, and more sustainable garden through the rest of the summer. And what I mean sustainable is maintenance-wise. It was so much easier to keep up with things having a head start like that. And it was worth it to me. It wasn't very expensive. I saved for it. I'm saving for it to happen again. My nephews now are working outside of home. They have jobs. They are now 16 and 18. So I don't even know if they're going to be available to help me. But I'll find another teenage kid that will. And it can just make a real big impact as far as the maintenance for the rest of the year. And so it really does help. Now, the rest of the year, that is how I do it, is I do little increments of time. I have a bookkeeping job. We're running a corporation. So I have other tasks I have to attend to, but I'll set a timer on my watch for me to get up from my desk, which is healthier anyways, rather than just sitting there all day long. And then I'll go out and pick a 3 foot by 3 foot area. This is a mental 3 foot by 3 foot. And I will focus on that area, whatever it needs. If it's deadheading, if it's weeding, if it's maybe adding a little bit of mulch, or if I want to transplant something like a ground cover there, then I do it in small increments of time. And you would be surprised at how much you get done in those small little amounts of time. And that's the way I enjoy my garden. And then if I want to take a break and I just want to go sit in the garden, I'm not worried about or thinking, oh, I should be doing this in the garden. I should do that. I can just sit there and enjoy the bees buzzing, the birds singing, and noticing what's opening up, what flowers, and all of that. And sometimes I just daydream and I redesign my garden. Maybe something's not working. And I think about maybe what else would I rather put there? And I just enjoy. So that was 10 plus tips on how you can make your gardening life a little less maintenance filled and just enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Come on back. I'm hoping to have that boring garden video done soon. I remade it twice already. Hated how it came out. Just what I want to say is not coming out right, but that's all well and good. So I hope to see you in my next video.